Hello chess friends, and welcome to Azarov's chess channel, and welcome to my advanced chess theory and to another part of the King's Indian defense. Today I wanted to show you the London system, and the London system is a very annoying setup by White. It's really White's idea to build a fortress with his pawns on dark squares, and it's really hard to play against it because I saw many games of it where much weaker opponent get at least a draw against a much stronger opponent in this setup. And on one tournament in the first round, the first seeded player played against the last seeded player, and the last seeded player managed to get a draw against the first seeded player, and their rating difference were like I think 600 rating points. And this was sort of a shocking moment in the early stage of the tournament. So it's really hard to play against these fortresses, and I will show you a strategical idea how to play against fortresses. You can apply this principle also in some Dutch games, in the Dutch defense, or when your opponent plays these fortresses. And I think it's really hard to find you way out if you don't know this strategical idea. So we have here d4 by White. This I will show a couple moves of the London system: knight f6, knight on f3, g6, and now this bishop to f4. With this outpost of the bishop, White will probably go e3 and c3 and block out the position on dark squares. And he has developed his dark square bishops, so it's perfectly fine. And if you are going chasing this bishop with your knights, and we will have to then play maybe h6 and g5, and you will weaken your light squares. So this is sort of a the game in the London system will be probably a more positional game than a tactical, as I've showed you maybe in this orthodox variation on the Petrosian system, or maybe Samish variations where many tactical ideas come into the game. And here you have to be calm and wait for your chance, because you cannot here gain a win very fast. So after bishop to g7, we have now this fortress c3, d6 of course, and e3. So see now, of course, after maybe bishop to e2, White is still fast on his castle. He has to develop only one piece, knight on d2, and he's perfectly fine. This bishop is aiming very well. It doesn't allow black to go too harsh on the dark square, so it's controlling also very well the dark square, the bishop. And after castling, here is a common move in the London system by White, this h3, and this h3 allows White to go bishop to h2, and of course then after that it cannot be attacked anymore by any piece of black. And when White does that, I don't recommend you to go in our, let's express this way, this orthodox style where we played this move e5 and try to, where after fixing position here on d5, go on this kingside assault. I don't think that will be possible in the London system, because this bishop is battling against your e5 possibility. If you want to go through e5, you have to prepare it more, maybe through knight on d7, knight on c6, and then e5. But as said, I don't recommend you to play twice with a piece in an opening. Of course, there are variations in which you play twice with a piece, but if not necessary, don't play it. So, And after in against this system, I recommended this sort of a fianchetto, double fianchetto by black after the move b6. You see, although you didn't gain any space here on the fifth rank. You see, the fifth rank is so far not occupied by your pieces, but it's still okay because white isn't interesting himself to occupy the center. You see, he hasn't played moves as e4 or c4, which will then have him a better center control with his pawns, and he's simply going for this dark square diagonal and a positional play, maybe through knight to b from b to d2 and maybe knight on c4, sort of provoke well, he provokes you to play maybe b5 or d5 just to just to open the dark squares on your queen side. So we have here now this move knight from b to d2, and you go knight from b to d7. Now bishop to e2, and we have bishop to b7. You see, it's simple development by white and black, but of course you see this will be not something easy to break here. After castling, you play c5, but you see, white and black will try to delay the situation in the center as far as possible, and this is perfectly fine because you see, you built also your sort of a fortress. And how to play against fortresses? We have here with the bishop and these three pawns here. White created sort of a fortress in the center. So my recommendation, when your opponent builds a fortress with his pawns on the same colored squares, you should occupy the opposite side colored squares. So in this case, this would be then the like squares. So any piece trade you make on like squares is good for you. You don't mind that if that happens. So of course you see, now we have a chance here, maybe a piece trade on the e4 square, because now our knight and our bishop are aiming on the e4. So this is fine. You see, because white has all of his pawns on dark squares in a potential endgame. If he then goes in an endgame with a dark square bishop, this would be good for him, because his bishop would then have no movement because of its own pawns. So as said, when your opponent is building a fortress here, in this case on these dark squares, you should occupy the like squares. So let's see how black does that. And I wanted to show you a game. It was played in 2017 between Matthias Kiese and Konstantin Kavutsky. Kavutsky with the black pieces. He is a strong intermaster, and he found a really good system. And here I wanted you to memorize here a very nice maneuver, how you can occupy the like squares of your opponent's position. So now we have, after c5 you say a4, and of course the threat is here to play a5, because after trade on b6, white would then have the control of the a file, and we prevent it by playing a6. If now comes a5, we play simply passing on with our pawn and going b5. So this is very fine, and we of course have this knight to eventually take on c5, so we wouldn't have to take then with our d pawn, and eventual here a trade of pawns on c5, because we have the knight. And if we take with this pawn, this wouldn't be good for us, which would then liberate really the diagonal for this bishop. So you see, you have to be careful. You have to be careful to not weaken your fortress here, which you build on your dark squares. You have to be a little bit more patient and simply occupy the light squares as said. Now, after bishop to h2, here is this maneuver that I've told you about. So remember this maneuver. It's really fine to play against the London system. And now after queen to b3, we have queen to a8, and now you see this very good diagonal for our bishop, and it's very nice, and basically what we want to do here to get these protectors out of this diagonal. This would be then the two knights, and this would be a good position for black if we could get rid of these knights which are protecting here this weak pawn on g2. Now we have white played rook to f from f to d1. It's a good move. It's aiming on sort of a semi-open file, which could then maybe get open in a couple of moves. And here black plays on the simple idea to occupy the light squares of the opponent. So now after a trade of knights came knight to e1, and you see this was sort of a positional threat here. Of course this knight is always pinned to this defense of g2, so it had to play on e1 to simply defend this g2 pawn. So it's a must play sort of, because maybe now white can prepare f3 and e4 to close the position on the light squares. But now in our plan black plays simply knight on f6, which also controls again this e4, and after bishop to f3, now rook to b8. And now you see we have, as said, our pawns are directing us the direction of our attack, and we have transposed all of this heavy pieces here, this rooks and the queen. We have transposed them on the queen side, and you see we didn't create here an attack on the king side as usual in the King's Indian, but now the threats are to play maybe b5 and really open the position for our rooks. So now after queen to a3, queen to c6 comes, and this is also a good move by black, because he remains on the light squares, on this light square diagonal with his queen. But the preparation is now to play rook to b7, and maybe play now b5 and really open the b file. So now after b4, you see again, now finally white tries a breakthrough through the dark squares. So you see the threat is here after it trades to liberate the bishop on this rook. But after the bishop takes on f3, knight takes on f3, here black gets out of this diagonal of the bishop, so it's very fine. Now we can transpose the game on the c file if we like. We have now taken sort of the c file, and this is also good. You searching with your rooks and your queen where to infiltrate in the game. And now the threat is of course maybe take on b4 and simply go here on a3, c3 and c2, and somehow go into the opponent's position. So now white took on c5, black took also on c5, and we have now rook to b1, which is also good by white, because he gets his own file open, and he tries to play on the b file, of course. And now you see again, we again occupying the light squares of the opponent with this move knight on e4. Very well played by Konstantin Kavutsky. So now you see this knight is very good centralized, and of course it has to be traded. It has to be traded by white. So now after knight on d2, black simply took on d4, and after knight takes on e4, well here black finds a really good move. Now he took simply on c3, because if the knight wants out of the attack of the queen, then you have c2 here, and one rook will of course be down. So because of that, white tried also to get at least a pawn from this position, but after taking e takes on d6, we have rook takes on d6. But now you see again this very nice c2 with an attack on the rook. Of course, if the queen takes, then we go simply here with the check, and it will be eventually a checkmate, because this would be the continuation and it would be checkmate. So again to this position. Now white plays, of course, rook to c1, and we have now queen to f4, which is good. Also again on a good center square. And now after rook to to d2, we have rook to b7. You see, white cannot take this pawn here because the queen will then take, and then we have the same position here. Again, it's mate, because if now the queen goes, we have then again checkmate, so it's not good. So after queen to f5, bishop to f4 came, getting some breathing space for the king here on h2. But now after rook to b1, white resigned. You see, there is no it's a losing game, because after maybe something king to h2, we have rook to takes on c1, queen takes on c1, and then you have bishop to b2, queen takes on b2, and we get out with another queen. So I hope you enjoyed this game. I tried to find really very good games in this London system from Black's perspective, and you see there are not many on the chess sites, because they're at least the ones that are easy to explain. Because, but I wanted to simply to remember here in this setup here, after a4 maybe, here is this very nice maneuver here, after bishop to h2, rook to a7, and now this queen to a8, which really occupies these light squares in the position. And I think this is a nice system to play against the London system. So thanks you for watching, guys. More videos in the future from the London system, because you'll see there are more flexible variations to play the London system from White's perspective, because this is, I don't think it's a good setup, although it's tough to break. But there are better setups by White, and I'll show you them in my future videos. So thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best.